The guitar is a tool for self-expression, but the guitar itself can also be a form of expression. Shapes, colors, materials, sounds, every choice matters, because when a guitar is built around an individual, it becomes more than just an instrument. It becomes their signature guitar. My name is Feliciano, and I've been an instrument maker for the past 6 years. In that time, I've had the privilege of working on some really unique instruments, each one attempting to turn a musician's vision into a reality. In this series, I'll take you through the entire process, from the conception of an idea all the way to the final product. Now let's go meet our first client.
Hey, come on in.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you? My name is Scott. I am a guitar player, but I'm more of a closet guitar player. I just pretty much play by myself, and I'm just kind of a random music freak, I guess. I look forward to actually having an electric guitar. I never had an electric guitar. Everybody's always wanted electrical, but I always ran into the acoustic side of it, and I don't know enough about the electric to only know that I want to explore with it and generally, and set it up so I can actually play something. I've never played an electric guitar, not even my brother, so it's one of those things where it's I'm looking forward to making that journey into the next side of the guitar world. I'd be interested in something that's very Tucson, Arizona related, as far as like the guitar style or look. I think that'd be really cool. I believe you could actually make a very good guitar, and I'm looking forward to working with you, getting this journey started. So I could probably add to my collection here.
We can talk all day about what a guitar looks like, but the way it feels is also very important. Since he's never played an electric guitar before, he doesn't have the context necessary to make those decisions. So I thought the best thing to do was just to bring some guitars with me and let him try them out.
Right.
The first one I have here is, just your typical Stratocaster. So why don't you give this a shot?
Nice. Oh, it's got some weight to it.
So I want you to notice a couple things here. One of them is there's contours, not just the belly contour, but also the forearm contour. And that helps to make it a lot more comfortable to play.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how weighty these are. Yeah, I was probably 10, 11 years old, and that was during the 1970s. So there was a lot of Rolling Stones, and what really got my interest going was actually Bob Seger. So there was some sound and that he had that was really interesting. And of course Led Zeppelin. And then later on, as my music kind of expanded, I got into Porcupine Tree and Satriani. The great thing about music is that I like exploring different genres. So that keeps me, I think, young at heart. Very nice, yeah. I like that. I like the feel. I like how it fits very comfortably, ergonomically on my right hip, like that. And it has a good feel too, as I move up and down the neck itself. I can't believe how much area there is to play down here too, compared to an acoustic. So, very nice.
What do you think of the whammy bar?
I have no idea how to use it, but I think I would want it, because I'm sure there's some, as I progress in my playing, I'm sure there's going to be some want or experimentation with it, so I think it would be really a good thing to do and try out and play with. I would want the whammy bar.
Yeah.
That's what all great guitar players have too.
Yeah.
First guitar was a Yamaha classical guitar. I still have that guitar. It's not shown in this room. because it's pretty beat up. My older brother Mark beat the living hell out of it, and it's in pretty rough shape. But it's a classically set up nylon stringed guitar. The neck was so wide that my hands could barely fit around it. So that was almost like a deterrent to play, because I could never get my hand around it at the time.
So this is a Les Paul. So this is a completely different design philosophy altogether.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to try it out.
Thank you. Wow, the neck is not as, it doesn't seem as long.
Yeah, it's a shorter scale.
Ah, okay.
So the Stratocaster is 25.5 inches
Yeah.
from nut to bridge. This is 24 3/4.
Oh, is that how they all are?
Yeah.
So there's no whammy bar on this either.
Yeah, no whammy bar.
Not made for one.
Yeah.
It does have the same weight, I noticed, as the other ones, but you know what? It fits well on the left knee as it does the right knee. So it's kind of a cool feel to it. Huh, okay. I think quality, something that's made in the good old USA, something that's, I guess, personal. Like I said, the very first guitar I had, even though it's beat up, I have a sentimental attachment to it, so I can't get rid of it. Likewise with the electric guitar, I think it's going to be a very similar experience. And right now, I don't even know what I'm looking for as far as like colors or textures or what goes in the inlays, if there's going to be anything in the inlays. I don't know. So I'm open to many things. So I look forward to that.
When using this guitar, do you feel like you definitely miss the contours, or does it not bother you that much?
I guess it doesn't bother me. I guess what's important is how it fits on my leg.
And that makes sense because, you know, an acoustic guitar like the one that you have has no contours at all.
It doesn't. Yeah, I think the other one, it's more ergonomic.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy with something like this as well.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Style.
What do you think of the shape?
It seems like there's playability on both of them. I guess. I don't think the horns. The other one protrudes a little bit more out this way, but I don't see any feel difference, I guess. This is my Martin D35. Actually got it when I finally finished college. I made a point in buying a guitar for my graduation. That's what this is. So this is probably from, I'm not going to give a date, but I will say it has some age to it. It's still in pretty decent shape. Love the sound from it. Martin guitar is definitely a quality piece instrument. I never realized the different decisions I would have to make in order to grade my guitar. But very nice. They both have about the same weight, I think.
So one thing that people do to reduce the weight is to make it semi-hollow.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think you would be interested in?
You know, I think if the sound is much different, perhaps. I think I'm more about sound than I am about weight. Jumbo Guild JF65. It's all maple flamed. Got some really nice inlays. I probably had this the second year after I graduated college. I will definitely start playing it a little bit more once I get my fingers back in mode to play. So the coolest thing about the instruments is that they were all made in America. So that I'm certainly happy to be a part of.
Now that he had a bit more context, we started looking at guitar designs together. I always use the client's favorite artist as a starting point because it's very likely that the instruments they play are going to be somewhat aligned with the instruments that the client is interested in. In this case, that wasn't entirely the case. Do you lean more towards like a solid color, or do you want to see the like the wood that the instrument's made of, and
I
something
guess,
like it.
I guess what I prefer is definitely seeing some grain.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be playing professionally, so it's me, myself, and I in the living room. So, but I still want to have some versatility there.
Yeah.
So that's important to me.
Like so far, would you prefer this shape over the ones that you've seen, or is there one that you've liked more?
I really like that one right there. That definitely has some great potential, I think, now that I see this one.
It was clear that we were headed towards a modern S-style type guitar. So you mentioned you want to see some grain. So let's talk about wood for a second.
Okay.
So earlier you mentioned that you wanted something that's, maybe Tucson themed, right?
Exactly.
So I figured, why not make the materials part of that theme, right? So we have a few options that we can go with. But one thing that you could consider is using woods that are native to Arizona. And I know that's a pretty unconventional choice, but it's been done before. It's definitely doable. So let's just take a quick look at what that looks like. So it's got this like darker look to it. So mesquite is known for having like these like cracks in it, right, naturally. But what a lot of people do is they fill them
in, right.
with epoxy. Is that something that you'd be okay with?
Yeah.
So one thing I've done in the past is I have a different shape for each one of those positions, right? So if you wanted to go all desert themed, like one of them could be, a cactus. Maybe another one could be a coyote. Something like that. Let's do
Roadrunners.
Roadrunner. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
That would be pretty funny.
Yeah, like have some kind of
not
shape
the
like
not
that.
the Looney Tunes Roadrunner.
No, not that one. Yeah. Since you're used to playing acoustic guitars, and as soon as you picked up an electric, you were like, "This is heavy."
Yeah.
Do you want to make this at least chambered or semi-hollow to reduce the weight?
I don't think so.
My job is to build whatever the client wants. However, there are times where I share my perspective, especially if I think that a decision they made will negatively impact their own experience. At the end of the day, it's their instrument, so if that's what they want, I'll build it for them. I'll feel better about it if I know that they had the information that they needed in that moment. In this case, weight has been part of the conversation the whole time, but he's making a decision that will result on an instrument that is very heavy. Well, mesquite is going to be really heavy, like heavier than normal, right?
Yeah, right.
So
I mean, what's your recommendation?
I would personally recommend going semi-hollow, or at least chambering the body, but that requires to glue a top to it, which could be the same species, right?
Oh, you're going to provide some type of renderings that we can kind of fine-tune this process.
As I was leaving, I noticed that Scott's door has two of the shapes that we were planning on using for the inlays. I took some pictures so I could trace them out and make those the inlay shapes. I think that gives it an even more personal touch. I put together some rough renderings which were helpful as we went back and forth on revisions. Once we were happy with them, it was time to start building. I started by rough cutting the mesquite board for the body. Since it's a semi-hollow instrument, but we wanted it to roughly look like one piece, I resawed the top portion to get access to the inside. I glued the two pieces together to form the body blank. And I did the same with the top portion. At this time it's quite rough, so I leveled it with a CNC machine. I did a scratch pass as I dialed in some of the settings and I was happy with the shape. At that point I could cut it to full depth. The knob holes got drilled all the way through since it would also mark where the backplate would need to go on the back. Then I began to hollow it out. I left about 3/8 of an inch on the sides, which is strong enough, and I left a substantial part on the center where all the hardware will be mounted to. The top surface was cleaned up in preparation for the top glue up. I rough cut the top just to make it easier to clamp later on. Then it was time to glue it all up. I intentionally left it proud of the body perimeter so I could flush it up using a router with a bearing bit. Then the top cavities could be routed starting with the bridge, then neck pocket, and finally pickups. The cavities were undersized, so I made an adjustment. The switch mounted screws and slot were routed next. Then I routed the top carve. This is my first time attempting to do this, and I'm quite pleased with the way it came out. For the neck, I need the fingerboard to be a separate piece to be able to install the truss rod on the inside. I got a neck blank thick enough so that I could cut the fingerboard from it. That ensures that the seam is barely noticeable and the colors match. The truss rod cavity is made with a router on a guide. This works as long as the sides of the blank are parallel to the center line of the neck that you're planning to cut out of it. I've recently started to route the truss rod axis as I find it provides a much more professional look. I cut what became the fingerboard blank to length on the bandsaw. Then I can install the truss rod and glue it together. Now it is ready to be cut out of the blank. I don't know about you, but there's something hypnotizing about watching a CNC at work. The tuner holes were routed in that same setup. I cut the fingerboard thicker than needed just to be safe, but at this point I can bring it to final thickness. I rough cut the headstock curve and I can easily refine it later. I then routed the nut slot and then I routed the 22 fret slots using a 0.024 inch bit. I inevitably break at least one on each build. A lot of progress was made. Now it's time to check in with Scott.
So, it's been a few weeks.
Yes.
And I've made a good amount of progress on the guitar. And at this point, I was gonna route the inlays on the fretboard, but I figured we might want to get together to finalize the design for it.
Okay, agreed.
But I figured this would be a good opportunity to show you where I'm at the moment.
Yeah.
Keep in mind everything's pretty rough, but here's the body.
Oh man, dude. God, that is amazing. God, the wood is absolutely stunning, isn't it? See, I don't know, there's something about that is incredible.
Yeah. So we had talked about doing like a burst, right?
Yes.
But the burst would cover that up, right? Is that still what you would want, or?
Yeah, I don't, you know, I mean, seeing the grain of the wood, it's just beautiful the way it is. Almost like a natural.
So I still have it in the blank.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm blown away by it, man. I can't.
I'm glad
I can't say enough about it.
you like it.
We went over the inlay design once again. This time it was useful to have the neck on hand since we could get a sense of the size of them. We also discussed the technical limitation, especially when trying to put a detailed shape on such a small space. Now that the inlay design was finalized, I was finally able to route them out. I first started with a perimeter cut using the same bit I used for the fret slots. This gives me the highest resolution possible. Then I used a slightly bigger bit to cut out the rest of the inside material. For the headstock logo, I first experimented with one shape, but I wasn't totally sold on it at this point. I used a Dremel to remove some more material for the epoxy that I was planning to use. I made sure to seal the wood with shellac before pouring the epoxy. Once cured, I routed the fingerboard radius, which also took care of the XX epoxy. It was cool to see the shapes finally appear the way I envisioned them. At this point, I could break the neck free from the blank using the table saw. I even got a bonus fingerboard blank for a future project. I used the bell sander to refine the headstock curve shape. Next I needed to refine the fingerboard radius, but first I needed to deepen the slots to make sure I didn't lose them. Using a radius block with some sandpaper, the fingerboard slowly started to take shape. Next, it was time to do the neck carve. First I get the back of the neck roughly to thickness. Then I use lines to cut facets into it. Ultimately, I refine it mostly by feel and with the guide of a contour gauge. With a spindle sander, I refined the headstock shape. After testing the tuners, I realized the headstock was still too thick, so I manually jogged the CNC machine to remove some material. I was going to lose the top inlay, but that's okay because I had a different idea. I took a piece of mesquite left over from the body, and I cut out the shape of Arizona. It's an Arizona themed guitar after all. I put my logo inside of that. I then routed for the inlay, and I routed in outline so that I could also pour black epoxy on that. The different thicknesses ensure that the inlay is locked into place, facilitating a consistent border all around. I resprayed shellac on the neck to prevent staining in future steps. Within all, I marked the locations of the side dots. I drilled for the side dot material, which is black ABS held in place with super glue. With a fret slot gauge, I made sure that the slots were deep enough for the tangs. The fret wire comes flat, so I have to bend the fingerboard radius. Once bent, I use a brass hammer to install it. Once all the frets have been installed and the bulk of the excess is cut, I use a file to get them flush with the fingerboard. A 90-degree file helps to get them flush all the way. Then I flip it around and use the other side to bevel the fret ends. A lot of sanding. And make sure to round over the sharp corners as well. With a small file, I round over the fingerboard edges. This is a subtle detail that really makes the guitar much more comfortable. It's a bit tedious, but I tape up the fingerboard to protect it in preparation for fretwork. With a marker, I color the top of the frets. This will serve as an indication of where I've removed material. Then I can do the actual leveling with a leveling beam and some sandpaper. I do this until the marker is gone on all the frets. Then I check my work with a fret rug. I like to add some follow weight to the last frets. I do this by taping around the 12th fret to act as a shim, and then I use a smaller beam to only sand that area. At this point the frets are level, but the tops are flat, and we need them to be round again. I recolor the tops of all the frets with a marker. Then I use a 3-sided file to crown the frets. I file both sides until there is a thin line in the center of the fret, which serves as the intonation point. I take the opportunity to round over the fret ends as well with a small file. With some sandpaper, I round over the subtle facets left by the previous operations. Then I go up the grids and I buff the frets. This provides a really smooth playing surface, especially for bending. Finally, I can take off the tape and examine my work. I finish the neck with some shellac. The figure really pops out at that point. I use some fine steel wool to make it really smooth to the touch. Now it's time to keep working on the body. I use some scrap NDF to make an electronic cavity template. To give it a more premium look, the electronics cavity cover was cut out of the same piece of wood as the guitar top. Then I use the template to route the step where the cover sits. I drill some holes which will be used for mounting it later on. Those holes are transferred to the body as well. Because the body is semi-hollow, I only need to remove a small amount of material to open that up. I do it freehand since it's not visible from the outside, but I do have to make sure I leave a step for the cover though. I use a bottom bearing bit to clean up the trem block cavity. Then I can route the spring cavity using some scrap NDF as a template. The trem block finally has enough space to move around. There's a pretty big crack which I filled with black epoxy. The back of the body gets a round over on all the edges to make it comfortable. By hand, I file some small contours on the two horns. This guitar is getting a barrel jack, so I drill a hole for that. I drilled the neck mounting screws from the top to ensure their good placement. Then with the CNC I can route some small pockets for the neck ferrules. To route wires between cavities, I drill between them. Then a lot of sanding. I round over the edges of the front by hand. Once sanded, I green filled and sealed the wood with a finishing epoxy that I rub in by hand. The back cover is the same wood, so I give it the same treatment. The green really pops at that point. I paint the front cavities black to give it a more finished look. Most of the finishing epoxy gets sanded off until I get a totally flat surface. The body is getting a poly finish. I start by mixing it up with the hardener. It's finally time to spray. I put on quite a few coats since most of it will get sanded off. Once sprayed, it looks amazing, but there are a lot of imperfections like orange peel. I have to sand the finish. I start with 800 grit and move up from there. This gives it a matte appearance, but that's only temporary. I use a buffer to make it glossy again. There are 3 buffing compounds that I have to go through. I don't pretend that any of my finishes are perfect, but I'm very happy with the results I got here. At this point, I can finally start on the assembly, first starting with the bridge post. Then I install the trim claw, which holds the springs in place. All the circuit components go in and are secured by screws or a nut. The knobs go on the potentiometers. The text at this point looks upside down, but it's meant to be readable to the player. Then the bridge goes in, and the switch tip. The trim gets 3 springs. These will get tightened during the first setup. I drill the holes for the strap buttons and install them in place. Before I install the neck, I install the neck ferrules. These are just pressed into place. Then I transfer the mounting holes to the neck and drive in the screws. The tuners go in. I make sure to align them using a ruler before permanently mounting them into place with the included screws. I use a nut slotting file to ensure that the slot is flat and deep enough. I shape the nut blank and I sand it to the right thickness. Using some calipers, I mark about 1/8 of an inch from each side, which is where the E-strings go. Then I use a nut slotting ruler to find the locations of the other 4 strings. With a saw, I start the slots of all the strings. During the setup, I use actual nut slot files. With this build, I decided to challenge myself by building the pickups. Because of time constraints, I only ended up focusing on the humbucker. I started by 3D printing the bobbins with ABS filament. The support material was removed right after the print. I needed an F-space keeper bar, and the only one I had was G-spaced. I took some mild steel and marked the locations of all the holes using my CNC machine. I then drilled the holes with a hand drill and cut out the part using the Dremel. I wound each bobbin with 5,000 turns of 42 gauge wire. One bobbin was wound clockwise and the other one was counterclockwise. The slugs are pressed into place with friction. A nut vise worked really well for that. The other bobbin gets screws. These self-tap into the plastic. Then the keeper bar goes on these screws. I magnetize the Alnico 2 magnet by passing it between 2 strong neodymium magnets. Then I put it all together. Some wiring and a setup later, it was finally done.
Alright, well this is the big day. It's right here, so if you wanna take a look.
I do. Yeah, go ahead, open that bad boy. Holy shit. Oh, sorry. That language
Oh, that's
is
okay.
probably gonna be beeped out. Damn, dude.
Alright.
The finish is blowing me away. I mean, I'm glad originally we were gonna go with the kind of a sunburst.
Yeah.
And then obviously to see the wood, the way it came out, I mean, that finish is just, it's stunning. Wow. I mean, the grain on the top here.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
this part, this is, the epoxy
Yeah.
that I used to stabilize the crack.
Right.
And the back plate is made out of the same wood. Came out from the same tree and everything.
Right. Tell me more about I mean, the wood. Now, you also agree that it was a good idea to do the non-sunburst and keep it very natural, right? I mean, it's...
I was hoping that you go down that route.
all the inlays with that contrast of the black and against that roasted maple with the pickups that are all black. It's crazy cool. It is really nice. Beyond whatever I ever imagined it would actually be. So this is one of one.
Yes. Oh, and it has a whammy bar. So it just goes in just with friction like that. So just gives it a
Steve Vai, eat your heart out.
Well, I don't know. So what do you say we plug it in?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. My neighbors would love to hear it. So we don't have the Marshall stacks today, but it's we'll get something going here in a few minutes, right?
Yep.
Yeah, excellent.
All right. So just for the record, I offered Scott if he wanted to play it. He declined, so I'll do the playing.
I do not want to embarrass myself, so.
I don't think you would, but it's all right. So this is the humbucker. So it's that kind of sound. But on the other opposite end, you got the neck pickup, which gives you that, strattier, kind of sound.
That's a single, right? That's a single.
Yes.
I do like that neck pickup.
Yeah, this right here is like the Strat sound, like. But you also have the middle pickup. It's got like a twangier sound, I would say. That kind of thing. So it's a usable sound, I would say. But what's more common is to use the middle with the neck combined.
Love that, that's great.
So that's one of the iconic Strat sounds. The only other position we haven't talked about is position 2, which combines the humbucker with the middle.
It has a nice feel to it, there's no question about it. The workmanship on there, Jose, is just beyond any expectation that I had. I mean, it's a beautiful piece.
If you made it this far into the video, thank you for giving me a chance. I'm hoping that this is the first of many videos on this channel. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit subscribe. Until next time. A lot of people just leave it at 10, but if you want that kind of sound, that's an option too.
Looking for the 11.
Well, couldn't source that one, but I'll let you know.
Yeah.